Okay. So I know many of you guys are still working on your bike. As a reminder, this is going to be a lab assignment for us. So spend another hour, hour and a half on your bike. Get this thing kind of wrapped up. Because then a bulk of our time this week we want to be able to spend on our house. Okay. Now architectural visualization is where we're going to spend our time today. And there's really a couple important ideas that we're going to cover. Specifically, the pen tool. Okay. The pen tool is where it's at, as they say. And you're going to love the pen tool. In addition, we're also going to talk about Booleans a little bit, how we can use existing pieces of structure, some geometry, other meshes to slice and influence another piece of geometry. It's pretty cool. I think you'll like it when you see it in action, okay? It'll allow us to create repeating shapes very easily inside of our houses. Yeah?
When I was doing the basic train, Chris at the drive told me to use that to make the windows.
You could do that, yeah. That's a great way of punching holes in the windows and what have you. Yeah, for sure. That's a cool way of working. So, as I mentioned a second ago, this is going to be our reality for the next foreseeable hour and a half or so. I apologize for the projector blinking in and out. I am hopeful that on the live stream it is not also blinking in and out. Let me see if I can get, no, it doesn't appear to be blinking in and out, which is pretty great. This week, our big homework assignment is going to be a house. As one might imagine, architectural visualization is low-hanging fruit for us in the 3D world. Naturally, this is going to be a great application of our 3D modeling tool set. One of the big picture ideas and the outcomes of this class is to expose you guys to a lot of the different avenues that you could go down with this 3D modeling tool set and this design thinking kind of in your back pocket, right? Architectural visualization is an industry that is exploding right now, okay? The tool set has gotten to a point where we can create photorealistic results without a lot of energy, which is pretty fantastic, okay? You take this over into other environments. The game world, of course, there's a direct application of all of these ideas pretty quickly in a 3D video game. Of course, you're going to need to have an environment for your character to play around in instead of a game, right? So these concepts extend much faster and much more quickly to the other applications of our tool set than just doing support for an architectural firm here in town, okay? These ideas are really universal. So let's jump in and specifically look at how we can start creating buildings in Modo. Our thinking is going to be a little similar than to what we've had before, but we need to start looking at details that will allow us to suspend disbelief a little bit more quickly. We'll come back to the specifics of our assignment as we get closer to the end of class today. But here we are, just kind of a new scene inside of Modo, and let's look at the pen tool, okay? Because the pen tool is going to allow us to craft very quickly a really unique shape. Before we go too much further, though, what shapes or shape are houses generally? Squares, right? They're just gigantic glorified squares. Now, I could go in pretty quickly and start to establish, a whole bunch of interesting, unique square shapes in here. For example, there are some folks that do this, which is just fine. They'll start with a cube, and then they'll start to just deform this cube by scaling it. Maybe this way and this way, okay? Then they'll copy, paste the cube. Oops, looks like I didn't paste it. There we go. Copy, paste the cube. Start changing some of the component details to go in and make it a little bit more non-uniform. Now I got my verts on. If I turn the visibility of my verts and my wireframes off, you can kind of see where I'm going with this. It's starting to look and feel like a blueprint, for a footprint for a house. Maybe the door's over here. Okay? And this is a cool way of generally and very quickly conceptualizing the big picture goal of a house. But how do we go in and physically start to model this? Because that wasn't a compliant surface. That was just a whole bunch of squares just kind of pushed on top of each other to create the illusion of maybe the outside walls of our house. We need to have some other system that allows us to create the accurate shapes that we need quickly. Okay? And luckily for us, the crew down at the Foundry have done us a solid, okay? And they've created a wonderful, wonderful tool called the pen tool that will allow us to sketch out something maybe similar to this, but in polygons, okay? Now, before we go any further, I think it's really important to point out that the pen tool in Modo is not underline, circle, highlight with an asterisk. The pen tool that we're often used to seeing over in like Illustrator or Photoshop, okay? That's the Bezier curve tool. The pen tool in Modo is unique. The product of the pen tool is always going to be some sort of surface type. And let me show you where you can find it I'm going to get rid of this mumbo jumbo real fast. Don't need that anymore. And I'm going to return to modeling. I'm going to return to modeling on a mesh item. Oh, I saw a number of folks doing this in the lab earlier. Okay, try your hardest to model on a mesh item. Look carefully in your item list. If the backdrop item is selected, just make sure that you're on a mesh. Okay, that guarantees you that you're placing the polygons and the tools are going to work correctly. Okay, don't work on backdrop items. Work on mesh items. So if we return to our basic tool tab, of course, we can find our pen tool right here. It's in the same area inside the interface that we found the Bezier curve tool and the curve tool and the B-spline curve tool. Okay, so if you don't see this icon inside of this slot here, just left click and hold with your mouse, and you can select the pen tool from the list. Okay, now our pen tool is a little bit different than the way the pen tool works over in Modo. I flipped over to view my scene from the top. Trust me when I say this, the pen tool is best used in the orthographic views. It ensures that this flat surface is going to be placed along a 2D grid. Okay, it gets all the points going along the same plane, which is a nice little trick. Now the pen tool for us, excuse me just for one moment, the pen tool for us allows us to just start clicking, and wherever I left click in the scene, I'm adding a vert. And you can see that the computer is going to go in and can continue to craft and create that shape for me. Okay? The product of this is always going to be a traditional surface with verts and edges like we've been seeing in a lot of other capacities so far in the class. Okay? Like we saw with the Bezier curve tool and the curve tool last week, these little blue control points here allow us to change the shape while the pen tool is still active. Okay? If I wanted to continue to add more detail on the little front bit, kind of where my cursor is, I have to pay attention to which of these control points is gold. New control points are always going to be added where? Before or after the gold one? After. Okay? So I try to go in a clockwise direction. I try to be consistent in my pattern when I'm placing down the points inside of my three-dimensional scene. So if this is the gold one, am I going to add a point here, or is it going to be added over here? Yeah, it's going to be added in here. Okay, check it out. If I go back and continue to left click in the scene, bloop, you see that that new control point is added after. Okay, now if I wanted to add one over in here, which of these two control points do I need to go in and click? This one or that one? That one right there, yes. I click that one, and now I can add more detail. So we have to be cognizant and very aware as to which of the control points along our path are gold. Okay. Now we get all these blue control points while the tool is still running. However, if I drop the tool, this is what I get: a gigantic n-gon. Okay, just a traditional n-gon surface. It's full of verts and edges that we can continue to manipulate and work with and refine as we go through our modeling process. Okay, so I can go in, grab some verts, move them around. It's not locked in stone, but now we're working with kind of traditional polygons in a traditional polygon environment rather than that pen tool creation environment. Looks like I'm creating like the mouth and horn of some like epic beast, right? Anywho's, what's cool about the pen tool is that we can flush out shapes pretty quickly, okay? With the idea that we're probably going to have to go in after the fact and slice this n-gon into quad polygons, okay? Because we don't like n-gons. The final surface type that we're going to be working with, it should never ever be an n-gon, but we certainly can create them at the beginning of our modeling process for us to quickly flush out an abstract shape. Now in the context of architectural visualization, there's an additional kind of power feature of the pen tool that takes this to a new level. Because I want to be able to use the pen tool to very quickly outline and create the footprint of our house, like the floor plan of our house, okay? And the lovely developers down at the Foundry have given us that functionality with the pen tool. Let me get rid of this monster shape. Bye-bye. Don't need you anymore. And once again, I'll return to the origin of my scene and look at my 3D scene from the top. Let's fire off the pen tool. However, this time before, and you have to do this before you start clicking, I'm going to go down into my pen tool options. Check it out. We have a wall mode. This is pretty neat. I use the wall mode all the time. It's one of those great kind of hidden tools inside the application that really extends the tool set much further than a lot of other apps can go. So check it out. I'm going to, of course, turn wall mode on by choosing the inner property. And then we also have to physically give it a dimension now. Okay? Modo works off of a real-world understanding of scale. And as 3D modelers, it's our job to build within inside of that unit of measurement, right? So believe it or not, the road, to success is understanding how big your models are, right? Really understand, especially in architectural visualization, how tall our walls are, how long our building is, okay? When we put things in feet and inches, we very, very quickly create points of reference, okay? Because now, I literally, because I'm a nerd, and this is how I solve problems, right? When we were moving into this room, we were trying to figure out furniture placement. And, they have a saying that, to construction workers, all solutions require a hammer, right? To a 3D modeler, okay, all solutions require a scale 3D model, okay? So what did I do when I came in here and started figuring out furniture placement? I measured all the walls and windows, and I created a scale 3D model of this room. Okay, and then I was able to very accurately place the desks and the furniture, and I actually measured all the desks too, right? Because I'm a nerd like that, right? And I created 3D models of all the iMacs, and I created I should show you the model. It's pretty neat, right? But because I was working in a real-world understanding of scale, and since I measured everything, I was able to get to that end result very, very quickly and extraordinarily accurately. Okay, I'd say my model of this room is within 1/4 of an inch accurate. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so we now have to work inside of an understanding of dimension, how big and what the size of all these things are. So I'm going to write this on the board. So I apologize for the live streamers who are watching this. There is kind of a nomenclature here that we need to understand. If you're new to working inside of a unit of measurement, especially kind of on the CAD level, this is important terminology to understand. Okay, so if I wanted to draw 10 inches, okay. That equals inches, okay? That's inches. The double, okay, the quote. The apostrophe, what's that? Feet, okay? So the quote is inches. The apostrophe, that is feet. So if I wanted my walls to be 10 inches, and you saw this in the channel box once the projector comes back, have I put in 10 inches or 10 feet here? 10 inches. Okay, so I know that I'm going to create a wall that's exactly 10 inches in diameter, which just so happens to be the thickness of exterior walls on buildings. Our building codes establish that pretty quickly. I think exterior walls are 10 inches in diameter. They have to be at least 10 inches thick. I think interior walls have to be 6 inches. Think about that for a second. 6 inches is only about like that much. That's how big a wall is. It's not very much, okay? Imagine a 2x4 on its side with, 5/8 inch, sheetrock on the other side. That's basically how big your wall is. It's not that big. So let's start putting down some points with the pen tool. You can see the magic unfold in front of us. Now the computer is going to be creating these cool little quad strips, okay? Isn't that neat? This is the wall mode. And now we can very quickly flesh out a floor plan for our house with the pen tool. Pay real close attention to the blue dots. Where are they? On the inside of our walls, right? And that's where the wall mode options come into play. Check it out. If we return to our pen tool options, here's your wall mode, okay? And right now it's set to inner. If I change that to outer, the control points are going to be on the outside, and the walls are going to be drawn on the inside. Make sense? What do you think both is going to do? If you're following along, check it out. What's both do? Bingo, you got it. So if we did both, now the control point is in the middle. Are those walls 10 inches in thickness? No, how big are they? 20 inches. Yeah, they're 20 inches in thickness. Now, I'm not sure why this is here. I'm sure there's a good reason for it. I've never used it personally. I'm kind of an inner guy, right, for the most part. but it's nice to know that we have that flexibility. Okay. All right, so let me put this back to inner, and we're on our way. So the pen tool, especially when wall mode is enabled, really becomes a strong super tool when we activate our global snapping system. Because, a lot of architects and homeowners and stuff, they want their walls to be relatively straight, with like perpendicular, like 90-degree angles. I know, it's just so demanding to have straight walls, right? Parallel, box-like shapes, right? So we want some accuracy. We don't want to be able to use our own kind of artist's interpretation of angles. We want to actually have the computer do some of the heavy lifting for us. Like 90-degree corners, that's a pretty important thing out there in the real world, right? Unless you're our art building, I don't think they had a level when they were making our art building. All the walls are like crazy off angles. No, it's a cool shape. It really is. It's neat. I like our art building. I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of modern, yeah. But we can go in and start to kind of infuse a new level of accuracy when we enable our snapping system. All right, so here's our global snap. Does anyone remember off the top of their head the keyboard shortcut that turns on our global snapping system? Huh? You're very close. It's the X key. X is in xylophone, okay? Or X Files. Any X Files fans out there? Scully and Mulder? All right, rock and roll. All right. So our global snap is on. If you hold down the Option key and click on that same button, you can see pretty quickly here all the different things that we can snap to. Now, when we're working with the pen tool and creating a floor plan for our house, vertex snapping is probably not something that we need. But if you look towards the bottom of this list, there are some rock stars that we're absolutely going to need. Specifically, world axis, straight line, and right angle snap. Yeah, because now our tools are going to snap to the global understanding of the XYZ planes. They're going to snap to straight lines. All right, yeah, like that. And this is 90-degree right angles. That's pretty rad too. That allows us to very quickly flush out and prototype a floor plan for our house thanks to our snapping tools. Let's put it in practice. Again, I'll go to the pen tool. Just triple check, make sure that wall mode is on, and I'm good to go. And as I start to click inside of my interface, check it out. You see it go boop. You see it snapping right there? Yeah, that's that straight line snap coming in. That's awesome, right? Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it. Oops. Let's see if I can use my mighty computer skills here. All right. Oh, this is getting tenuous. See the little purple square in the corner there on the left? What does that mean? A right angle, okay? So now there's that right angle snap coming back and really serving us well here. I know very directly because of the snap system that the wall on the left and that top wall are perpendicular to each other. That's pretty cool, okay? And now I can just continue flushing out the rest of my model, okay? Maybe I have a crazy wall over here. Something like that. That's pretty cool. Can move it around. Okay, let's see. There it is. Now I want to have, I don't know, I am literally making this up as I go along right now. Now it seems it totally just yoinked on me. I think that has everything to do with the fact that I zoomed in. Moto is really not designed for teachers like me. There we go. We'll do something simple. Maybe I'll put up the front door. Maybe this is where my kitchen nook is over here. I always like to pretend as I'm designing these, where would the kitchen be, right? Where am I going to have my cereal in the morning, right? Maybe I'll have an awesome little barbecue in the backyard. This will be the back door, okay? There it is. There's the floor plan of my simple house. Now, again, in the world of Moto, we kind of, in all 3D apps for that matter, we kind of live in this uncanny valley, right? Where we lose sense of scale pretty quickly. In an environment where we can zoom in and get as close as we want or get as far away as we want from the object, we very, very quickly lose a strong understanding of how big or how small things are, right? Now, how big are those walls? 10 inches. Numerically, we know that because that's what we dialed in and put in the channel boxes, right? But visually, does it look 10 inches? Not really, right? So how can we understand the total volume, the area that this floor plan is taking up, right? We need to have some measurement tools inside of Modo that allows us to very quickly understand and consume the size of very specific component pieces of our house, right? And this is why the tool set in Modo is so advanced, is that they have tools like this in here. Check it out. This is really kind of neat. If you go to the top of the screen under the View drop-down menu, at the very bottom, there's some really great tools. Specifically, we're going to start off with the Dimensions tool, okay? Now, the Dimensions tool, when enabled, it's going to give us the relative dimensions of whatever is selected, or in our case, with nothing selected, it's going to tell us the size of everything. And you can see by the little dimensions that we get here that the total area, the total, the total height or total length of my house is 25 feet 8 inches. That's cool, right? It's a pretty good size house. In addition, up here at the top, the total width of my house is 23 feet 10 inches, okay? So the Dimensions tool is going to give us some real numbers. If we make a selection, the Dimensions tool is going to change a little bit. Like I know the length of that wall is 18 feet 3.842 inches. That's pretty cool, okay? Now where it turns into a problem are walls that are on angles like this. Because I want to be able to know exactly how long the outside edge of that wall is, right? Well, the Dimensions tool, not so great for off-angle pieces like we have here with this wall. It's not telling me the length, it's telling me the total area, height and width-wise, that this shape is taking inside of our three-dimensional space. Which brings us to another tool that's really helpful for us to understand the scale and the size of the things that we've created. I'm going to go back to that exact same View pull-down menu and deactivate the Dimensions tool. Oops. But this time, check it out, we have a ruler tool. And now we can actually physically go in and measure things, specifically edge segments inside the app itself. Now what's great about the ruler tool is we can pair it with some vertex snapping perhaps. So we'll turn off all of this jazz and we'll snap to verts, okay? Because these little blue crosses, whoop, I'm all zoomed in, which is why it freaked out. Oh no, there it is. Whew. Got scared for a second. There we go. Because now I can move these blue crosses around, have them snap to existing verts inside the scene, and boom, I know the outside dimension of that wall is 14 feet 11 inches. Thank you, ruler tool. I know numerically how long my dimensions are. This is awesome because now we can design and create to CAD level accuracy, right? At its core, once you start peeling back the layers here, Modo is just a really, really, really fancy CAD application, okay? Because of its solid understanding of real-world measurements, okay, and real-world systems of measurements, it makes it incredibly accurate. Now, from your guys' perspective, you're probably saying, whoop-de-doo, Pat, okay, this is not that big of a deal. Don't all 3D apps have this? Believe it or not, no. Not all 3D apps have this exact same unit of measurement. I'm looking at you, Maya. I would love, 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 love to be able to go in and measure feet and inches and have this level of detail, and some of the other 3D apps out there, they just fundamentally are not there. They work in a unitless system of measurement, which is not fun if you're a control freak like I am, right? Because I am a control freak, okay? When it comes to my 3D models, I'm a control freak, okay? All right, let's get back to having some fun here. Let me turn off my ruler tool. All right, so there it is. Let's be good stewards of our model and center it along the ZX plane. I like to have every single thing centered. All right, so we got our floor plan. Now what's next? Start making some walls, and beveling's a great idea, right? Because we can take this two-dimensional shape, we can extrude and bevel it, vertically. And what's cool about understanding that Modo works off of real-world scale units is that we get to bevel to a very specific height. But what would you imagine if you, in your apartment at home or your house at home, how tall are your walls? 5 meters, 15 feet? Those are good. That's a big ceiling. That's almost as tall as in here. It's probably 8 feet or 10 feet. Most residential home ceiling heights are around 8 to 10. Okay, so let's make it a good sized room. Let's make our walls 10 feet. That'd be cool, right? If you look carefully at the bevel tool and the extrude tool, both will give you the exact same thing. Let's just fire off bevel here. Of course, we can do the blue handle. However, if you go over to our tool properties, you can see that really the blue handle is influencing the shift value inside the channel boxes, right? I can easily go in here and put 10 feet, bloop, and I know precisely how tall all the walls of my building are going to be. So let's just do it 10 feet. Of course, hit the enter key on the keyboard to confirm the command, and voila. There she blows. There it is. Now I know this is Pat's 3D hut. It's not very big, okay? But now we know that those walls are exactly 10 feet tall. We don't have to guess, okay? Precisely 10 feet. Now, maybe we change our mind or our creative director comes in and says, Pat, this is awesome, but I really would like to have the walls like 11 feet high or maybe 10 feet, 6 inches. And you go, yes, sir, or ma'am. Okay, and you go back to your model and you got to figure it out, right? However, if we continue applying this understanding of real-world scale units to our model, those edits go pretty fast. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, I've just done a loop select of all the polygons in the top of my wall, and once again, watch what happens when I fire off our tools, okay? You can go like this, or if I just want to move it up 6 inches, I can type in that value inside the channel box for the move tool, right? Literally, every tool is associated with our understanding of measurements, okay? So I can say, hey, move these top polygons 6 inches. There we go. And now, that's 10'6". Let me prove it to you, okay? I'm going to grab that edge, go into the dimensions tool, boom, 10'6", okay? It's very accurate, incredibly accurate, okay? Check this out. This is actually kind of neat. I was blown away by this when someone showed this to me. What if you don't know the math, right? What if you don't know the height, but you just know, oh, I need to lower it 18 inches, right? This is cool. You can actually do, like, if I wanted to say these in here, let's do this. Let's fire off the move tool, and we're going to move it. Let's see. Let's make it crazy. Let's make it like, I'm going to move it up 10 inches, but then I also want to move it up another, I don't know, 10's a bad example because that math is easy. Let's make it 3 inches plus 3. I'm good at math. All these solutions are easy for my brain to figure out. 18 inches. How many inches am I going to move that up? 21 inches, right? So you can do simple math inside the channel boxes, and Moto's going to do all the work for you, right? So you don't actually have to know the numbers. You can actually have it the computer do some thinking for you, which is pretty great. 21 inches. See? You're right. Hey. Anyways, it's pretty neat. I thought that was kind of cool. All right. We'll move it back down. There we go. Okay, cool. All right, so that's pretty neat. We got our walls, okay? But, maybe we need to have some windows, This would be a pretty drab, prison-like environment for Pat's 3D hut. That's what I'm going to call it for the rest of the day. If there weren't any windows and doors, right? Which presents us with a unique challenge when it comes to architectural visualization. Windows and doors are kind of uniform in their shape, right? And look around here. Look, the two windows over on my office, are they the same size and shape? Yep. What about the windows over here? Exact same size and shape, right? So we need to be able to go in and start editing our mesh, but in a very consistent, defined pattern, right? So how could we go in and put a whole bunch of windows going around the outside of a house? How can we do that? Slice it? Yeah. What tool will allow us to slice, the row of polygons going around our house real fast? Loop slice is a great way of doing it. I like loop slice, especially when we're defining the tops and the bottom. That's a great way of working. Let me show you, okay? If we go in, let's go into polygons, select a couple polys along the loop that I want to control. Alt-C. Now, if you look at my tool options, I've changed the count of my loop slice to 2, the mode to symmetry, which will allow me to uniformly, symmetrically place the top and the bottom loops along that row. Okay, oops. I apologize. The visibility of my wireframes is currently off. Let's also just make sure everyone in the back can see it. Let's turn on my verts. There we go. Now that bottom edge is way too low. Believe it or not, windows aren't centered on the wall. Why aren't they centered usually in residential homes, commercial homes differently? You got it. There's a privacy consideration there. If you think about it, most windows start kind of right around here-ish, which is, for me, it's about my belly button height. Okay, so they're not centered in the wall itself. Interesting, right? Okay. Now with these two edge loops, I very quickly define the top of my window and the bottom of my window. But how big is that? I don't know. I really don't know, right? I could figure it out. I mean, there are ways that I can go in and look at the position of all the verts and place them where I want and really kind of get super accurate. But fundamentally, I have no idea how tall that window is, right? We're relying on our own artistic interpretation of the design versus, engineers, they don't do artistic interpretation, right? Let's just put it simply, right? Engineers are all about science and data and numbers, okay? They're the rational thinkers of our world, okay? They're awesome. I love hanging out with engineers, right? But they don't do interpretation, right? They want precision. They need it to be exactly X, Y, and Z. So let's just pretend that this is okay, like good enough. How are we going to go in? Loop slicing allows us to go in and establish the top and the bottom, but how can we establish the left and the right sides of our windows? Okay, yeah, another loop slice, okay. But then how are we going to, if I want to have 4 different windows along that wall, how am I going to make sure that the width of all of those windows are the same? This is where it gets to be not fun pretty quickly, right? When we need to establish repeating patterns, our slicing method begins to fall apart pretty quickly. There's a different way of approaching this, and it's called Booleans, okay? Instead of slicing an existing mesh, why don't we actually physically make a window or a piece of geometry that represents our window, and then ask the computer to use that window chunk as a slicing guide for the walls, okay? We're using established, completed pieces of geometry to slice other pieces of geometry. It's pretty easy to set it up. Let me show you how it works. I'm going to get rid of these 2 loops before we go any further. All right. So let's see here. Now I want to make some windows. Yeah, let's do this. I'll flush it out real easy. We'll do this wall, and we'll do this wall over here. Okay. So how big are my windows going to be? Let's just figure it out. How big? That's about 4. That's the 3. Yeah, 3 by 4. I think it's a great idea. It's about 3 feet. These are kind of square, but let's make ours rectangular, maybe 3 feet in width, 4 feet tall. That's a good idea. It's a good starting point, right? Now once again, the cool thing about the Modo tool set is that I can figure out these dimensions upon creation. Right? Now, I'm just using the cube tool, but if you go over and look at the details in the channel box, probably the thing that we've all ignored up until now, we can go in and tell the computer exactly the size of that we want our windows to be. So I want this to be 3 feet by 4 feet tall. There we go. I didn't hit the return key, which is why it looked odd. And there it is. Okay? That is exactly 3 feet by 4 feet. We'll give it some dimension, and we're on our way. Now, the cool thing about this system, this Boolean system, is that we don't need to be accurate in its placement along one of the axes. Okay? Now, for me, I need to really make sure that I like its placement up and down and left and right. That's really, really important. Something right around in there looks pretty good. Okay? Yeah, I like it. But notice how the mesh goes through the wall. This is the most important part of Booleans, okay? In order to slice the outside and the inside of my walls, I need to have my cutter go through it, okay? Think of this like a cookie cutter, okay? The walls are the dough. That little block is going to be the cookie cutter. And I'm going to shoomph, cookie cutter in a window-shaped hole into the walls, okay? That's the idea. Now I want a couple of these windows on this wall. And this is where the power of Booleans really comes in, is I can do a lot of this work quickly. Check it out. I'm going to use my clone tools. Well, that's maybe a little too many. Maybe I just have 3 windows in here. That may be kind of cool. Yeah, there we go. That's pretty neat. 3 windows along that wall. That's awesome, right? Okay, so now that I've established my here, well, I wanted a couple on the other side. Let's do this. I'm going to copy, paste. I'm going to rotate this shape 90 degrees and position it where I want. Now, I'm going to be very careful not to move it up and down because I want the height of all my windows to be the same. Okay? But I can move it left and right. And of course, in this particular model, along the z-axis to get what I'm after. Now, how many windows do I want over here? Well, I know that I'm going to have an awesome barbecue on the back deck. Okay, and these are going to be, this is where my kitchen's going to be over here in my imagination. And in order to see my awesome barbecue, I'm going to have another window that's like super big. It's like a bay window, right? Gives me that panoramic view into my awesome backyard that has a trampoline in it, because everyone loves trampolines, right? Yeah, I see multiple people nodding your head. It's a universal truth. Everyone loves trampolines, okay? Until you break your ankle, then not a fan. Or dislocate your nose? Are you kidding me? Oh, that's a bummer. Okay, anyways, all right. So we can vary the shape a little bit, and this is where 3D modeling turns into a whole lot of fun. I'll leave it like that. That's enough detail for this example, and we'll keep going forward. Now, we got to be good stewards of our scene, and here's a trick. Okay, since we're going to have kind of like the dough, we need to put the cookie cutter on its own layer. Booleans work between meshes. Okay, so I want to have all of my cookie cutters on their own mesh item, and the dough, in our case, the walls, on a separate mesh item. Okay, so let's start separating these things out. I'm going to create a new mesh item by hitting the N key, N for new, or November, on my keyboard. I'm going to call this cutters. And while I'm here, let's rename this mesh item walls. Okay. Does anyone remember how to move polygons from one mesh item onto another mesh item? I heard it, and you're right? Yeah, or probably in this particular situation, because we want to move them, we're going to cut and paste, right? So I'm going to grab all the geometry that represents my windows, my cookie cutters, edit, cut. I'll go to my cutters mesh item and do edit, paste. Okay? Now they've been separated out. This is a hard and fast rule of working with Booleans. We have the cookie cutter on one mesh item and the dough on another. Separated out. In order to perform the actual Boolean itself, we need to make sure that the active mesh item, okay, in finger quotes, okay, is the dough. Now, what defines the active mesh item? Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably a better and easier way to hang on to it is just whatever one's selected. Okay, whatever mesh item in your list has that the dark outline behind its row. Okay, this is also a really great indication of that's the active mesh item. Whatever's in the background or whatever's unselected are going to be the cutters. Okay, so if you want to have my recommendation to you is to put all your cutting geometry on a single mesh item. Any mesh item that's visible and unselected is going to be a participant in this Boolean system, so we got to be careful with it. All right, so I got my walls selected. I can see my cutters in the black wireframe there. It's kind of hard to see on the projector. For that, I do apologize. And now we can actually start to fire off the Boolean tools themselves. There are 3, but really we only want to focus today on a singular one. It's called solid drill. You can find your Boolean tools under the geometry pull-down menu, and specifically if you go all the way down to the bottom, right there, you can find solid drill. Now I'll let you explore the functions of the other Boolean tools, but the solid drill is my favorite. The solid drill gives us the next step. Okay? It allows us to sit in the commander's chair and determine what we're going to do next, right? For me, it gives me the most options. It's not necessarily the best one or the only one, but like I said, I'm a control freak. I want to be able to determine what I do next, okay? So solid drill is my fave, okay? And specifically, check it out. We're going to be asked to pick an operation. I like slice, because I want to use those cookie cutters as slicers for me, just to slice my mesh, to imprint, if you will, its geometry on the walls, but really not to do anything more than that, okay? We'll do slice. Now watch what happens behind the operation box when I hit OK. Bloop. Cool, huh? Wherever that geometry existed on that background cutting mesh item, is now sliced my foreground mesh item. It's like these things are like lasers cutting in our mesh, okay? Let's turn off that cookie cutter in the background and see what the product of this operation is. Yeah, check it out. It's gone all the way through. Here's my epic bay window in the back to view my trampoline. That's pretty sweet. It's done the back side and the outside. So yeah, so now we're in control of the next step. Because it really has only done just a slice operation, we get to figure out what we want to do next. Okay? Now for me, I want to have an opening here. A physical opening. Okay? So how could I create that opening quickly? You could delete them. Great. I like that. But then what would I next now have to do? Bridge it, which will be requiring a lot of selecting, right? Here's a power user trick. If you're just trying to make a tunnel, if you will, in between two surfaces, select the outside, select the inside. Watch what happens now when I do bridge. Boop. Saves you a couple steps, which is pretty cool. Now, unfortunately, you can't do them all at the same time. You have to do each pair kind of individually. But, sometimes there's grunt working 3D modeling, and it's really not that bad. It's not all Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Sometimes you just got to sit down and do it, right? There we go. Done. Okay. So now we physically have openings for our windows, which is pretty exciting. Okay. So we have some openings. I would literally do the exact same thing with the doors. Okay. If we have time, I'll show you some really cool snapping tools that will allow us to put the windows on those angled walls. But we'll save that maybe for at the end or next week. Yeah. Yeah, so for this assignment, don't worry about the rooms on the inside. Trust me, you're never going to see it, okay? The render camera isn't going to get close enough to really see the interior detail. Now, if I was trying to take a picture of the house, and if this is the outside wall of the house and my render camera was right here, then that level of detail for the interior of the house would be a good requirement, right? But for our renders, we're going to be putting our entire house in one picture. You're never going to see the inside, okay? Only the exterior. Yeah, you guys would hate me in about 2 microseconds if I said, oh yeah, do the outside and the inside. Yeah, there would be an armed revolt, torches, pitchforks, the whole thing. Yeah.
I was wondering, why is the tool called Boolean? Because I know that's a kind of a yes/no kind of thing in programming, but I'm not sure what it is for the teams.
I don't know.
I mean, I know how to use Boolean
Yeah.
program.
Yeah,
It's a yes or no question.
It's just a yes or no question, right? And you're right. In the traditional sense of computer programming, a Boolean is a question, right? That's going to produce a very defined outcome. You often 1, 0, yes, no, question. I don't know why it's called like that here. I just don't know. I'm not the tool maker. I'm just the tool user. Yes, sir.
So in our case, it's like to cut or not to cut.
There it is. I like it, right? All right, let's keep going because we have some awesome walls. We got the the beginnings of windows, okay? But what don't we have on our house? Big feature, a roof, okay? A roof, okay? So we need to start going in and defining what our roof could look like. Right? Okay. So I actually spent a summer as a roofer. It was the worst summer of my existence. I hated that job, right? I knew pretty quickly in the course of 3 months that I was not put on this planet to be a roofer, okay? But in that experience, I've learned wonderfully how roofs are put together, right? Does anyone know how big a roof is? Like what the overall dimensions of a roof actually is? It's really kind of scary when you know this, and then a big storm comes, because it's like an inch sheet of plywood, some very thin waterproof tar paper, and then an asphalt roofing tile. Okay, so really the total thickness of a roof is about that much. Okay, it's not that much. Okay, of course sometimes they have really fancy roofing tiles, which will kind of give you a much larger illusion of a dimension, but really it's only about like that much. It's not very big. Okay. The gutters that go around the outside of the house kind of make it look much thicker than it actually is. It's only about that much. So they're not very big, okay? But what general shape are they? Good question, right? Sometimes folks get overwhelmed with the shape of a roof because all they see is the complex angles to it, right? However, if we put ourselves in the mind frame of a roofer or a craftsperson that's physically responsible for making a roof, then the answer to our question gets really easy. What basic shape is a piece of plywood? It's a rectangle. It's a rectangle that's now cut with very crazy angles into triangles and all these weird things, right? But the raw material is flat. So that's a good place for us to begin, right? If the raw material is flat and then we cut it along angles like a roofer would, now where it's getting a little bit easier, right? I always try to put myself in the mind frame of the person or the craftsperson that would be responsible for actually making it. So if a piece of plywood is the source material for a roof, let's start with something that looks like a piece of plywood. Our piece of plywood is just going to be huge. Like, okay? Gigantic piece of plywood. Now, I'm really exaggerating the dimensions of the roof just to make it easy for you guys to see, because if I did it with 3 inches, I could do it pretty easily. I could say, all right, Mr. Roof, your dimensions are going to be, let's just make it 4 inches just for giggles, okay? That's the dimensions of 4 inches. It doesn't look right, okay? So I'll make it big and extreme just so you guys can see exactly and understand what it is that we're trying to do here, okay? So we're going to start with a flat plane, 2-dimensional plane, okay? Not 3-dimensional yet. I'm looking at my scene from the front, and now I've got to figure out the angle of the roof, right? The pitch of the roof. Every roof, well, most roofs have pitches on them, an angle to them. And, there is math that determines the rise and the run and the angle of all that jazz. This is not a math class, so we're not going to do that, right? We're just going to do an artistic interpretation of a roof, okay? So we need to start rotating this roof into the angle that we want. And believe it or not, the angles aren't that extreme. Something maybe like that, okay? Now there's a couple things I can see right off the bat that I need to change. First and foremost, we want this to be a mirrored roof, right? The left side angle should be the opposite on the right side, right? To make a ridgeline, a point in the center, okay? The other problem that we need to make, or that we need to solve, is our overhang way out over here. And let's begin there because that's real easy. Now I like that there is this really great perpendicular angle between the top of our roof and the side dimension. That's kind of neat. I like that. Okay, 90-degree angle. I want to preserve that as much as I can. However, excuse me. Man, look at the size of that overhang. A roof does not hang out that far off the edge of the roof, right? It doesn't hang off that far outside the edge of the walls, right? The overhang is only probably about that much, maybe 2 feet at most, right? To make sure when the water runs off the roof, if it does not go into gutters, it's not landing right next to the wall and the foundation of your home, right? It's way more than 2 feet, so I need to bring that edge to the right closer. So how could I do that?
Make the size of it smaller, or you can cut it, slice it.
I can slice it. I want to try to avoid slicing it because I really like that angle in here, okay? Yeah, what happens when we just move it? Just moving it to the right completely changes the pitch and the angle of the roof. So that really doesn't give me the result that I want. I want to be able to very carefully keep this angle, but make it tighter in there. Here's a great suggestion. Really what I need is to change the angle of my tool handles to match the angle of the roof. Okay? You're pointing at it. What are we changing? The action center. You're absolutely right. If we change the action center to selection, the computer's going to go in and analyze the current selected piece of geometry. Okay, check it out. Action center. It's going to analyze the slope and the orientation of the selected piece of geometry and match the tool handles to that selected component. If you look very carefully now, the X indicator tool handle is pointing down the plane, and I can make a change. Oops, oh, I'm all zoomed in, so it's going crazy. Now I can make a change to the roof without changing the angle of the pitch of the overall piece. Okay? All right, that's pretty cool. I like that. Let's change the action center back to none and start resolving the rest of my problem here, okay? Because I need to create a ridge line here, okay? Now, I want the left side of my roof to be identical to the right side of my roof, so this is a great opportunity for us to mirror, but we need to make a center line first, okay? I love my snapping tools. The snapping system inside of Modo allows us to do such wonderful things. I'm going to turn off vertex snapping, turn on grid snapping, okay? And now, since I was very careful in making sure that I had a big chunk of this polygon overhanging the middle of the x-axis, well, check it out. Now I can just slice down. Oops, I didn't turn my snapping system on. There we go. Now I can just slice down, and I know that that edge, since I did the grid snap, is perfectly, and I mean absolutely right on top in the middle of the x-axis, okay? Now with that in mind, I can once again turn off my grid snapping and turn on my vertex snapping because I like the vert snapping. Since I know that that edge is at the middle of the origin, in the middle of the x-axis, I now can change my action center to origin and then do a mirror. I'm under my duplicate commands now. Bloop. And I got a perfect roof. They're all connected together. And I have something that I can then start to flush out, you know, my shape, which is pretty cool. Those action centers are pretty nifty, okay? Let's do this. I'm going to extrude this shape. Something like that. I'll have a cool little patio on the back. We're getting there. However, if you look at my front from my house, what is my big problem here?
You gotta fill in the wall.
Yeah, I have the world's best air conditioning, right? Man, I have a little bit of a problem in front of me. I need to connect the walls to the roof. How am I going to do that quickly and accurately? A lot of folks would go in and start to do this. They would maybe hide the roof just temporarily. They grab that top loop and they try to move it up. Okay. Now and it's to get what I'm after. You know, it pokes through over that side, which is not what I'm after. Okay. It's never going to work. And the best way to do it would be to slice the walls so they match the pitch of the roof. Thus enter Booleans again. Okay. Slice it with the roof, okay? So the roof is actually going to serve two purposes. It's going to be a cutter, and it's going to be part of the actual model itself. Two-step operation. Let me show you what it looks like. The first step in this operation is to raise the walls. Loop select. I'm going to raise the walls up like this. So they cross all the way up to the top of the roof, okay? I'm going to double-click on the roof, and then once again cut and paste it into my my cutter mesh. Okay, now I don't need these anymore, so I can either hide them or delete them. Just hide them. I'll return to my walls, activate the visibility of my cutter mesh item, and run the exact same Boolean tool that I ran before. Because now we can use the roof, so I'm going to use this slice operation. Bloop, awesome sauce. There it is. because now I've just used the roof to cut in the angle that I'm after. Now there's some chaff in here that I don't need. Shift up arrow, up arrow. I don't need any of that anymore. And I can put my roof, cut and paste back where it needs to go. And now I've resolved the angle of my, the angle of my walls. Yeah, so I got some slicing in here that I got to do. This isn't a perfect mesh in any sense, right? It looks twisted. It's actually not. The computer just doesn't know how to render that surface, okay? Because it's got these verts up here that are kind of odd shaped, okay? So we have some work in here that we now need to go in and perform to get compliant surface types, okay? So this is where the slicing tools in Modo begin to really shine. Because I can use this existing structure to get me into quad polygons very, very quickly, especially if we pair the snapping engine and the slice tool and some intelligent selections together. Whenever you do any sort of Boolean, you're going to get little weird little edges like this, okay? Don't worry about them. Leave them there until you've sliced it all into quad polygons. I'll do a couple. I'll do this one wall here. Now, I don't want to slice on the inside of my windows. I just want to slice that wall and that wall. It's good to have the outsides and the insides be as identical as possible. Let's look at it from the left. Oops, didn't mean to drop the selection. Yeah, okay, cool. Because now I can just use my snapping system, and specifically the vertex snapping is where it's going to help. Mesh edit, slice. Please note that I'm using the infinite command. That way I only have to draw a small little line up and down. And you can see that the infinite command takes care of the rest. It does the tops and the bottom pretty quickly. Okay? That's looking good. Because it's so fast, let's look at it from the back. Do the same thing over here. Marching towards the end result here. Okay. Now going around the entire mesh, I want basically all the outside polygons to be sliced horizontally. And hopefully this doesn't cause any problems. Sometimes it does. I'll do the inside as well. There we go. Oops. Let's look at it from the left. There we go. Because now I need to slice going that way, going left, to get everything into quad polygons. And let's see, did it do it? Yeah, how about that? Now I can go in and start getting rid of some of these weird angle guys in the corners. Slicing it into quads allows us to remove those odd corner pieces that are left over from the Boolean. Yeah, happy camper. That's looking pretty good. Now this one in here, yeah, I think I'm going to go in and just do some edge slicing in here. Yep. The moment I brought that vert down, the computer understood its surface type. Aha. Rock and roll. I think that's probably the only one that I got to do. Yep. And I'm good to go. All right. So now that I'm starting to march a little bit closer and closer to my final result here, let's talk about how we can maybe detail some of this out. Because opening on windows, that's good things, but really there's a lot more detail on the window that we should establish quickly, I might add. Okay? We need to add a frame. Because if you think about it in the lens of a construction worker, what's the first thing, when they make the walls, they put the drywall or the sheathing on the outside, then they cut a hole, right? A square hole in it, kind of like we've done. And then what do? They put the window in, right? And the window is really a box that sits on the inside of that opening, right? To cover up all the rough edges, they put some trim around the window to hide all of it, to make it waterproof and weathertight, okay? So if we do the exact same thing, we can get to the final result much, much quicker, okay? Kind of follow that practice as much as we can. Now I'm going to do one real fast, but once we have one, we then can copy and paste it to all the other windows that are the exact same size and dimensions, which are a majority of them in here. So let's focus our energy on this window. Now I want to create the illusion, I'm going to do some loop slicing here, that there's a window frame. Okay, loop slice, count of 2, mode of symmetry, and then I have all of this in here that I could bevel. Whoop. There we go. Maybe I do another bevel, an inset, then one final bevel. There it is. Ta-da! There's the beginning of a window. So all of this geometry in here represents the actual window, but we need to kind of cover up some of those loose edges, right? This is where, oh, excuse me, I apologize. This is where the pen tool really kind of comes into play here, okay? Because I want to put some rectangular trim going around the window. Since I'm using my snapping tools, and maybe, and this is why I love working in Modo, I can use the pen tool. Trim is rectangular. We're going to use wall mode, but now I want my exterior trim to be 2 inches. Make sure my snapping system is on. I want to snap some points right around there. Now I don't want it to be a closed mesh. That's pretty good. Oops. For some reason this happens, I forgot. I do this in all, because I'm using verts on an existing active mesh item, it's actually merging the verts of the new pen tool into the mesh, which I don't want. So that's my bad. Let me rebuild it one more time. Boink, click, click, click. Awesome. Let's flip them around. Looks like they got a little flipped. Oh, no, I had them right the first time. Hit the F key to flip them. Unhide. And now I'll just bevel it out a little bit. You can even bevel it out to a very specific value. Most trim on the outside isn't going to be much more than a 1/2 inch. Okay. There we go. We're getting there. Now we need one more piece of trim that comes down here at the bottom. Let's change it to outer. Boop. There we go. I'm also just going to scale that up a little bit, and then once again bevel this out to create the shape that I'm after. Now this little sill here is actually kind of a unique shape. It's not a perfect square on the top. It's actually a little bit of a slant on it. Does anyone want to take a guess as why there's a slant on the top of a lot of windowsills? Water, yeah. Just to make sure the water runs off, okay? And there it is, okay? There's the window. Now, it doesn't actually have geometry for the glass itself. Here's an old school trick, okay? I've selected the interior polygons, and I'm going to run loop slice with the count of 1 and a mode of uniform just to ultimately give me an absolute center line on the inside, right? I like those center lines because now with that center line, I can bevel it out a little bit. Just doing some edge beveling. And those polygons right there, that's going to be the glass, okay? Or, excuse me, we have the edges that we need to make the glass. This is the trick, right? This is a great trick, by the way, okay? If you select the edge, hit the P key, it actually creates a polygon, but it's flipped. It's on the inside. So if we select it, hit the F key, now it's going that way. Do the same thing for the inside one. Hit the P key. Now it's kind of hard to see because this front guy, let's hide it, is in the way. But this is what we're after. A polygon for the inside, a polygon for the outside. I can put a transparent material in there and get the actual refractive qualities that we're looking for a piece of glass. Because in residential homes, even a lot of commercial homes, the windows are double paned. There's actually a cavity in between the windows, right, to keep it really, for insulation, soundproofing, and things like that, right?
How do you hide a mesh?
H key. Yeah, hit the polygon, select the polygon, hit the H key. What's neat about our snapping system is that I now have, a pretty big structure here, okay? And if I grab all of my windows, okay, went too far. That's looking pretty good. Let's see. Actually, I'm going to see if I can do this all at one time. Select my frames first, shift up arrow a number of times. There we go. Looks like I think I'm getting it all. And now check it out. I'm gonna copy it and I'm gonna paste. I'm gonna move that geometry over a little bit. Okay? So now I have that exact same structure that I created on my first window that I can very accurately place inside of here. Okay? If we use the power of our global snapping system, we can snap these where we want to go. Check it out. I want that vert over there. Okay? So let's turn on our snapping engine. I fire off the move tool, and let's see. Am I snapping to verts? I am. There we go. I can put my tool handles on that vert, and I can snap, boom, to the other one. Okay? So it's in the exact same spot as it was on the first one. Again, I just copy, paste, fire off the move tool, move it over. Put my tool handle right on that vert. It will snap to it because it's our snapping system, and then I can snap to the corner. So instead of making a half a dozen windows by hand, I make one, copy, paste, move, snap, boom, I'm done. It gets me through my iterations very, very quickly. Now what this is going to turn into is a render that's pretty basic. Okay? You're going to be asked in your homework this week to make a pretty complete model. Okay? Look at your own house or your own apartment complex or a building that you see all the time and make that one. You don't have to create something that you find online, although that will be a component of it. If you make a building you'll be able to understand its spatial dimensions pretty quickly or a little bit more easily. When it comes time to render this thing, don't forget about a small environment. I'm literally just going to put my house on a ground plane. Make it kind of big. Let's just jump over into our render and take a look at Pat's 3D hut. And there we go. Yeah. Clearly there's a lot of work in there that needs to be done, okay? But I bring this to your attention because I want you to see the type of perspective and the view that you're going to be capturing of your house, okay? Now, are we right down in there where the render camera is maybe inches away from the model? No. And when we've crafted something big, the render camera is going to be some distance away from it. Point being, don't spend all your time modeling a detail that the render camera is never going to see. Okay? True story. A number of years ago, on this very assignment, I was waved over to someone's station and said, "Pat, look at my door. Isn't this an amazing door?" And I said, "Yes, you did an awesome job." He said, "Look at the door handle. Look, it's got the curvature just perfectly. It's got all these wonderful bevel profiles. I think I spent like 3 hours on that doorknob, right? And it looks awesome." I said, "Yeah, that looks awesome. Great job. However, you wasted 3 hours." And they went, "What?" "But it looks good. It's an awesome model." I was like, "Yeah, it's an awesome model that you're never going to see," right? From this view, what level of detail do you need to place in the door handle? Not much, because the render camera is pretty far away, okay? Establish the overall perspective of the final render early on inside of your modeling sequence so you know what level of detail to model to. I don't want you guys to spend 3 hours modeling a door handle that you're just fundamentally not going to see the detail that you placed in that model. Okay?
I was curious on that, like when I'm doing for some of the homework assignments, I know I'm only gonna hit for the render shot that's gonna be submitted for the homework.
Yeah.
So I'm not even gonna bother on a certain size. So I just don't know on grading for the class if you.
No, and this is one of the challenges that we have in our 3D industry. Okay, in certain times we have to make the picture work, right? If you don't see it in the render, you don't see it in the render. Why spend time on making something perfect that you're just fundamentally not going to see? However, the great thing about our 3D modeling tool set is that it gives us a flexible work environment that allows us to examine this shape from a number of different angles. So we want to try to make complete models as much as we can because we never know when that composition of the render is going to change. If it's an animation, we absolutely want to make it a complete model. If it's a model that we know is going to go into a game engine, then it absolutely has to be a complete model. So there's really no, I think maybe the underlying thought is try to make it as complete as you can, okay? But be aware of what the output's going to be. If this is your output, model to this resolution. Yep. Yeah, it's kind of amazing. If you look at some of the, I saw a really wonderful, wonderful image, okay? It was a high-detailed interior that had every piece that you can possibly imagine in geometry, right? Had carpets and lamps and tables and chairs, and it was a wonderful interior architectural visualization, highly detailed, photoreal, right? And they showed, you know, in the demonstration, they showed the picture, and I was like, sweet, awesome model. I definitely appreciated it. And then they showed the actual model itself, and it was very much like my desktop scene. Once you look left and look right outside the frames of the render itself, the model kind of disappears pretty quickly, because why are you going to waste your time modeling something that you're not going to take a picture of? So.
Oh, do you have the model you said you did of this room?
I do. I should bring that in next week. I have it on my laptop. I don't have it on the instructor station. I can show you that. No problem. Now, before everyone starts escaping, there's one other thing that I want to talk about. Okay, just really, really fast. Okay, if you return to Canvas and check out the expectations for this week, of course, we are building a house. Okay, please keep in mind this is the exterior of the house, and this is going to be a two-part assignment. This week, all geometry. I don't want you to really worry about the materials and textures for this week. If you want to start throwing in some temporary ones, you're more than welcome to, okay? But how we apply tiling textures and do our material setup and lighting for a house or something big like an exterior is fundamentally different than what we've talked about so far. So next week, we're going to spend a bulk of our energy looking at lighting and textures for big exterior pieces like this, okay? So I want you guys to just look at the model and make the model. The student examples down below should act and serve as a wonderful guide as to what we're looking for. Be creative with this. You can literally make any house. You can make bag end if you'd like. Okay?
What about
this
the
is a bag. We'll get to that in a second. You can make bag end if you like. Does anyone know what that one is? That's the Simpsons house, right? I don't know what that one is, or that's just kind of a cool house, right? But have fun with this, okay? Make it your house. Make it the house you've always wanted to live in, okay? However, and this speaks to the next part of the assignment, you need to found your model in research, which brings us to the second part of our lab this week, that reference research. Your job is to get accurate and to be inspired about architectural visualization. Once you start looking at the data and start looking at reference, you'll find that there are patterns that emerge pretty quickly in a lot of architectural visualization. So I want you to go out and be a little detective and research what houses look like, okay? Study, look at blueprints, look at how the framing works, and be inspired by the pictures and the images that you see and that you find inside of your own little, kind of research section. Yeah?
So for like the house reference research, do we have to find like pictures or?
Pictures, yeah. At least 10, okay? Find at least 10 pictures, zip them up into an archive, and submit them to the Dropbox.
10 pictures of the same building?
Can be different buildings, and there's zero expectation that you build the building you do reference on, okay? So if you find 10 pictures, this is actually a picture of the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, okay? So if you find 10 research pictures of the Haunted Mansion, I would encourage you to build that house, because your brain has already consumed it, it's thinking about it, it's understanding how all these pieces are put together, but you don't necessarily have to build the house that you do research on.
So if you find 10 pictures, do you want me to just put it in a folder?
Put it in a folder, zip it up, put it in the Dropbox, boom. It's going to be the easiest 25 points you guys earned all semester. You're welcome. Okay? Any questions on what we're striving to achieve this week? So finish your bike, house research, make me a house. Sound good? All right, I'll see you guys next week. Give me 2 seconds and we stop the live stream.